save a step.
Absolutely. Okay.
Cool.
So the whole purpose of this is just to provide an easy place for people to kind of navigate and self-serve where all of our key docs are inside of our current offering. And then I added this table of like the newest syntax references and when they were introduced with their core purpose. Given that like the YAML file is the key piece of our verify, CI offering.
Building blocks.
This is kind of like one of the things that people end up asking us questions about, and then wanted to kind of highlight some of the challenges. So thought this would be a good, just like, hey, here's some light softballs. I would expect that I would cover this content the most. And then where I would expect to start transitioning over to you would be in these next slides. This is the current category review, just positionings of like key features with like a blurb of their positioning. And what I think would be interesting here, Parker, is to kind of talk about like competitively, what are other competitors doing with this kind of category. So like merge trains is its own category in continuous integration. You can reference the category page to see what the competitive landscape looks like, but kind of talking about, again, the problems that this solves and the benefits of using something like merge trains.
I was going to say maybe value to the business.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Kind of thing.
Exactly. So really just the talk track here, positioning, really that hitting hard on why merge trains would be beautiful. Keeping for a company, merge trains is all about keeping your master or your main pipeline. We'll not use master anymore. Your main green, your main branch green, so that you can deploy straight off of it, right?
Makes sense. And there's not, so I've done a little bit of digging, or I think a lot of the team has back when we did some competitive stuff. I haven't found anything like 1-to-1 or head-to-head that equivalated, that was equivalent to merge trains. I was curious if there is something that maybe is just called a different term that I wouldn't have recognized or something, or if there is anything that's really close to this, because in my head it's been a pretty clear kind of differentiator.
Well, this is like fast forward, merge, like that's like a common strategy for pipeline management.
But does it orchestrate them automatically like ours does?
Yeah, and like GitHub Actions has a automatically merge. So like GitHub Actions allows this. Orbs allows you to do this kind of thing. So
are they marketplace? Are they extensions of the actual?
Yeah,
they're not native functionality. Okay, cool.
Well, so that's I mean, like, but like that's like de facto standard as far as like how people are currently orchestrating their pipelines, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And then artifacts. This is like, of course, you can talk a lot about artifacts, but when we think about one of the core pieces of continuous integration, there's two types of artifacts. So just thinking through, how people use artifacts, the value of artifacts, how this connects back to testing.
That package, maybe. Do we want to make that connection or?
Yeah.
Because I think that's still something that connection with package can be difficult, depending on how close you are to the product and whatnot. So I think that'll be a good connection.
For sure. Yeah. Cross stage, I think is good. And when we do this recording, I think from like a timing perspective, we have 4 groups to cover. I think we would want to get through the current review in like 20 minutes, right? So like 5 minutes per
slide, like per section or per slide?
Per section.
Yeah, that's right. That makes sense.
Which when we get to like something like which I don't know what these slides are. I might need to.
That's about where I got to earlier when I was like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Look like runner. Which is good because I like using white space like that, but we gotta make sure there's enough context to connect the dots.
Yeah. Because yeah.
I think this is good. I like that it's heavy on the product side, right? There's a plenty of like solution-y type marketing stuff out there. So I think this is good that it's not just like a long laundry list of features, but instead it has a little bit more there that I think should be helpful for consuming this from like a field angle.
Yeah. And really I'm picking like very lean, bare bones so that we can paint more of a connected story. So like we're picking merge trains because it's its own category, picking artifacts because it's the backbone for what holds the content of the pipelines, picking variables because it connects to secrets management and configure. So like when we get to this slide, highlight that variables controls your interactions inside of your pipeline, kind of paint that it allows a lot of flexibility in your pipelines. It also allows you to, consider thinking through how you want to use in combination with the secrets management category.
Control secrets. Yeah, that HashiCorp Vault integration is cool.
Yeah. And just paint, consider looking at the documentation variables and positioning this. It is one of our, more buggier areas of the story, but it also has a lot of feature functionality with, masking and protection. And so it's interesting has a lot of features in it, but also a lot of
note that there's, we still got some room to grow there. Maybe is a good way to,
yeah.
Yeah.
So pipeline authoring and continuous integration used to be one group. We recently split them.
Yep.
And pipeline authoring, I can do the setup of these slides. So like once you wrap up with continuous integration and you do your variables positioning and we go to the slide, I can introduce, pipeline authoring, recently delivered some of the more innovative work inside of Verify around the pipeline editor. And we'll also talk a little bit about matrix build. Parker, would love to hear your take on how we're performing with parent-child pipelines, and then you can like dive into the narrative around parent-child pipelines.
Yeah, and I like that description. I was just reading through it. Large, slow to build, great to push, has long range dependencies between jobs, which I think is probably even more common the bigger the organization, right? I think back to like that NVIDIA call. They had a lot of interconnected stuff like this in their jobs. Cool. And that's a big, I think that's a high dollar feature for us too, as far as separate, maturity and separating us from the pack kind of thing. I think parent-child pipelines are really sticky. Cool.
Yeah. And if you, on this particular feature set, it's interesting to consider like complex modeling and how there's also like, this might be a newer feature, but we have a lot of opportunity to shape the direction of the scope here with new use cases, that kind of thing.
Cool.
And then this is the pipeline editor visualization. This was the newest feature that we released.
Good stuff.
And then if you have questions about the actual use cases, this is, I guess, your time to kind of press me and kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, the first ones I'm pretty good with. I think for merge trains, that first little section, I think those I'm at least familiar with enough to go into some
Okay.
documentation, and I could ping you async for those.
Okay.
Parent-child pipelines, I know what they do. I don't know if I've necessarily seen like a super complex model example. So I'm sure we have plenty of those that I could go check out as well.
Okay.
But I think I get the gist of it, right? Long, complex workflows where you've got, interconnected jobs that are doing different things. They've got, a long list of dependencies where, if you don't do that efficiently and you don't coordinate how that flows, then I'm either going to get conflicts or long running jobs, all that kind of thing. Seems like a decent way to go about that.
And this is particularly good for a single repo,
Okay.
single project. Like we're not looking like a multiple projects.
Not across projects per se.
Right. So we're looking at a single project with many jobs. That's where parent-child is particularly useful.
Do we have anything that does across all projects, many jobs? Or is there a way to do
multi-project pipelines?
Multi-project
in CI.
But you can do parent-child with multi-project, right?
Not traditionally. It's not a common application.
Cool. Just curious.
I mean, you can. I don't know if it's
why you would.
Like multi-project pipelines is here as well. See, like this is the second slide.
And then editor visualization, which we got to think of. Yes, I've been trying to noodle on some pipeline authoring alternatives, and nothing great has come to mind yet. And then pipeline editor visualization, cool. With DAG, right? Those go kind of hand in hand. See the changes and then visualize the changes. There's a little bit of a difference there. Cool. DAG, and then we build dependencies, relationships between jobs, state, and traditional. Yep.
So structurally, I would say like 30 seconds to a minute per slide. In most of these cases, if we could find ways to like connect the story, maybe we create like an organization, an example organization that we're talking about, and we set them up at the beginning of this presentation and talk about their pain points. And then we can paint their picture and the use of these features. That I've seen that work really well in the evolution of there's this story that might be one way to stage this if you're looking for ideas on how to like connect this story. So you're that way you're not just like reading slides.
There'll have to be something. We did it. There's like a Tanuki Pets example that was carried throughout a CI book that I just worked on with ITSIC. So that may be an option because it's kind of fresh in my mind. Tanuki Pets. And there may be places to, or weave it into an overall story, and then places that can be little enhancements to the story. Because, to craft a whole narrative with each one of these features going all the way through is not a small thing to think through. So I'd have to really think about what would leave the door wide open for all of those features, or keep it so simple that it doesn't have to be realistic. So I'll think through that.
Yeah, because here, what's beautiful about all these features is that you either have a developer using it or you have like a manager using it. Mm-hmm. So you can say Tanuki Pets developer or Tanuki Pets DevOps engineer or Tanuki Pets manager. So like you just scale it for those different levels in the organization based on the persona.
Yeah.
So like, for example, looking at this slide, job artifacts and pipeline artifacts, like, if you're a developer and you're looking at analyzing and diagnosing your pipelines, you're going to want to be able to download easily your job artifacts. But let's say that you are a DevOps manager and you're wanting to know why your pipelines keep failing. You also want to know your pipeline artifacts over time, and you want to be able to download your pipeline artifacts to compare those.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you can bounce between personas in each of these use cases. And again, I'm not a PMM, not trying to tell you how to do your job, but like I'm trying to like give you kind of like ideas on how to like think through the different personas in this view. And like, this is a really great one from like DevSecOps full life cycle with variables. Like you can be like, with variables, you can be a security persona and think through, hey, mask your variables or protect them, and even think about leveraging our HashiCorp integration.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's, all that's good, right? Because we'll have this recorded. I can come back and listen to some of these things too. So if you have any little blurbs like that, that's all really helpful, right? You live and breathe this stuff and you're in it every day. So that gives me a head start on connecting dots. So
right. And using this as like an opportunity to build your efficacy this is like across everybody in the verify stage. So like we're building your foundation and like all of this muscle to get connect the CI use case work that you've been doing with the features. Because when we last spoke, like we want to get you shifted left into the feature work.
So and this is awesome. And like, it's, some of it's got to be a forcing function, right? There's no easy way to go about it. So we got to just get in there and do it.
Yeah. So I think like being able to connect you to what currently exists and why we built those features, so that you then have the context to then like, hey, pipeline editor visualization is V1 of what will be invested in Q2, which will be pipeline builder. So like if you can understand why we ended up building pipeline editor visualization, you'll be able to help Dove articulate why we're building and thinking through and create content for the pipeline builder in Q2.
Yeah.
And
I think that's great.
Pick a better name.
Yeah. It's true, but do we want to use it?
Not that pipeline builder is a bad name, just, yeah.
No, it's not. It's not bad.
So something that's really cool about needs is that it's completely competitive in the market around GitHub Actions and Circle CI orbs. It's native insider capabilities, not as performant as some of those marketplace plugins, particularly around being able to plug and play with people's markdowns. Like we don't have like nested needs. We have limits on those. Like we don't have infinity needs. You can only, so we're not as needy as some people.
And so give me like a real use case for when people use DAG, right? Like, I understand what it does. When is someone using this? It's like, is this only for really, really like mature organizations that have the ability to kind of connect these kind of things, or small shops using this, small teams? Like,
no, I would say like people who have lots of microservices. Okay. So if they are building like a application that has multiple language, mobile apps, but they want to deploy all those mobile apps at the same time, and they're trying to coordinate those, or they have dependent and independent microservices that they're trying to coordinate together, they may visualize that in a DAG.
Is it like like the same way I think about like a matrix, like browser test? You're like, except we're doing a visualization of all the pipelines, right? It's the same kind of in parallel sequence of, one's just a sequence of testing in parallel, one's a sequence of pipelines running in parallel.
Right. And like you can see here, some of the jobs are connected or running in parallel, or some of the environments are dependent on one another or not. This will make your pipelines faster because some jobs won't have to wait for others.
Okay, that was going to be my other question. I see that they're all connected, but I was wondering, how does it help with speed if you could just run all of these in parallel without? Because some of them, it's because of the dependencies.
Because some of them do need others first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not an option. They're not doing it because it makes it faster. They're doing it because they have to in their dependencies. All right, got you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Cool. That's helpful.
Perfect.
Is adoption good with that so far? Like, are we seeing growth? Are we seeing the adoption growing there, or are we seeing that people are hesitant to jump on it because they don't know how?
So I think we're seeing a lot of engagement in like issues and traction from that perspective, and essays giving us lots of feedback. I'm not sure if we're actually like tracking number of needs keywords inside of the YAML file, but we're definitely tracking like pipelines triggered. And after we released this needs keyword, we saw more users triggering pipelines.
That's cool.
Multi-project pipelines, this allows you to have one pipeline in a project, trigger a pipeline in another project. This is really great for separations of duties pipelines, or if you want to have a test pipeline in one project, trigger a pipeline in a different project, you can execute that. I've seen this happen in embedded systems where you have a test that passed and then it runs a pipeline to deploy a job to an embedded system. So those are a couple use cases that you can use or talk about if you wanted to.
Cool. Speedy. Okay. Multi-project Ci Linter, heard a lot about, or a decent amount about that. Our little lint tool, so we can validate in real time the syntax, which is cool. I almost think of it as like keeping the developers honest. Let's see. Real-time validation.
Yeah. And I think that the story that we should tell wouldn't be keeping the developers honest, because
that was just for me in my head.
Okay.
That would just be in my head.
It's like the developer, it would be like the code should be, testing the right things and the syntax is doing the right things,
Oh yeah, that was just a Parker mental sidebar. Sorry, that was not like this is what I'm going to go present. Yeah.
Okay.
GitLab runner.
I'll need to ask Darren about the talk track here. I'm not entirely sure about what he's thinking, but I'm probably gonna skip this slide for now.
Cool. I'm assuming he's getting it like, multi-platform.
I didn't add it, so
flexibility kind of thing. Like, hey, we can hang with the best. We've got the options for you. Cool.
Yeah. Plus, I'll need to like update the logos here so that they all have like backgrounds. Yeah. I think the things that are important to highlight are like our multi-language support of Runner Cloud. So the fact that we support Windows, Mac OS, and a wider range of scalingrunners.com. So like we are playing where you're at. That's a really important story to highlight. I think it's also important to set the context that Runner is the executor of CI jobs. It's the engine that's powering all CI. It's also important to highlight that it's the gatekeeper for many of the CI features, that it has the power to lock and unlock the potential of CI.
Yeah. Directly related to kind of how it executes, as far as being the execution engine.
Right.
And auto scaling is a really cool, I guess that's probably in one of these. Auto scaling is a really valuable feature too. Group runners, we want projects, runners. Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And then protect, customize, runners. We'll talk about in the future first half goals, sticky runners. So this will be something that we can build off of that, like, here the position is there's a lot of flexibility as an admin to do things. So we empower admins to customize runners, I think is the story that we are trying to tell in the UI, right?
Easy management. Would it be fair to say customization there as well, management and customization, or is that just around the more management side and more management and protection?
Just management.
Okay.
And is this helpful or overwhelming right now?
No, this is helpful. I mean, this is good. It's, some of this I'll have to soak it in. I'll have to come back and look but this is good. This is, this is way better way more efficient than me trying to go and read, because a lot of this stuff I've looked at multiple times, or I've written, reviewed release posters, but, reading through stuff like that and doing your homework is different than getting a practical run through and like understanding how it's used and, it actually applied in real life. Right. Which I think is important.
Okay, good deal. Then I'll try to figure out what is the intent here.
Runners.
Let me tag Darren real quick and get him to add some commentary, because
that's cool.
I can either present the landscape slide or we can try to get what he wanted to
figure out what he was thinking.
What's his head here? What's the narrative? Okay. And then diving into testing, this is probably the most breadth. It's also the most minimal. So it's interesting when we start to tease apart like how much coverage we have is like, it's really just little slivers of feature functionality, but it also the most focus we have is going to be in code coverage. So functionally, when we start to present these features, it really is going to be that one slide is going to be all that category has. So when we position this, you can say like, this is a really lean feature set. For load testing, this is pretty much, what we have. Browser testing, this is what we have. So if people start asking more questions about future functionality, like we'll be redirecting them. Code coverage is really our focus for testing team in 2022. So that might be something that will come up, but to prepare you, like, focus. We are lean on that.
22. Yeah, I mean, I think. And that's where we can refer them to, hey, that's how we work. It's how we roll here. And a lot of it's still either in minimal or the lower maturity ratings, but that won't be for long, right? So
totally. So this first slide is really about the code coverage. This is one of our most like efficiency stories around approving code and it being right in the MR diff view and in line with remarks. So really strong on if you're, a team lead like Delaney and you are reviewing code as a software engineer manager potentially, or even just a senior software engineer, and you want to efficiently execute on that using this feature, allows you to do that all in the same place of a single platform.
Yep. Team lead, team companies. Does it do multiple lines? Is it in this example that it's showing us? Is it just showing us like line 7 has no coverage?
Right.
Okay.
And then, but then like 1 through 3 has coverage.
Okay. So that's okay. It's not necessarily a selection tool as much as it is, or is it a drag and drop? I've never actually gone in. Okay.
Inline code coverage remarks. Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, what activates it? You know what I mean? Like, do you have to go, do you just go hit a checkbox? Because I've never gone in and actually had to use any of the automated testing features.
So
I'm just curious.
you have it enabled as like a code quality report
Okay.
inside of the MRDiff. And again, you have to have it like enabled in the runner,
Yeah.
and it's run as a part of if you have like the right language and in your repo.
So there's a few prerequisites and some, you have to configure
Yeah.
things, and then it does its thing. All right.
Right.
Cool.
Unit test report. This is another code testing, part of the code testing and coverage category. It's still valuable for people who aren't using merge requests, which is interesting. If we wanted to look at the testing category and try to find ways to take it out of the runner and to find ways to move it out from behind the runner lock, we could see reports as being one way to do that, and like loading artifacts into CI test views. Unit test reports might be one way to do that. That's just more like context for you. What?
Right. This is like a household testing item, right? Like it's pretty common throughout.
Exactly.
I remember, JUnit reports were always popped up in the Jenkins realm too.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. JUnit testing. This next one, browser performance testing, is one of those minimal features I was talking about. This is like the first iteration that we made available. And I think we've done a couple of enhancements to it. It's in the merge request widget. It's really great for website development teams. It shows you your performance. You need to turn it on. It uses sitespeed.io.
You said it's at minimal or viable, or?
I think it's at available, so minimum.
Okay.
But let me double check. It's viable, actually. Oh no, it's minimal. It's minimal. I lied. Our next maturity target is viable. I saw viable and I was like, oh, I was hopeful. No, it's minimal though. Here we go. Okay.
But not, Firefox, Safari, / whatever browser. Cool. Just a note for myself to think about how to.
Yeah, I love that.
Explain, like, hey, like, who wants to play not Angry Birds? What's one of those little browser apps? Who wants to go to eBaum's World if he doesn't want to a throwback website?
Load performance testing is another one of those categories of breadth inside of testing. So we kind of cover all of our bases in the merge request widget. Great experience for the developer, where again, if you need to do some of your testing performance on the back end for APIs and microservices, you can set it all up in your merge request widget. It's all right there.
Sorry, when I do this for myself, it like helps. It'll bring me back to this moment, and I'll think about it.
And then accessibility testing. It's in the merge request widget. I think we also use. I think we have a report for an output file for this as well. Like that can be downloaded, but let me double check that. Yes, it builds an HTML report for each, and the artifact can be viewed in the browser, and then it also shows in the merge request widget.
Well, and I can speak to a personal example with accessibility testing.
Oh, I love it.
It's just more important than it's ever been. You can't live in today's world or create products and not think about accessibility. It's just really kind of unacceptable.
You have to.
Like even video games, every video game, the first screen that pops up now, if you buy a brand new, a next gen game, almost every one of them is going to throw you to an accessibility screen. And that's the way it should be, because for
I agree.
decades, people were left out. So I think that's cool.
It's really good. As someone who's red green colorblind, I completely agree. I love it.
Yeah. Then you definitely get it, because
I know
things we tag with red and green that you're like, thanks.
I was like, I have no idea what this is saying. Cool. Charts can be really misleading for me.
You actually get to use the features though.
I know, it's really cool. Then I have this last slide, which is just kind of capping off highlights from the community, markets, and customers. Wanted to let people know that we've delivered on a project configuration with 51 upvotes, that we've had a lot of engagement on our DAG feature, even though we had lots of challenges around the needs capability. We're still looking on ways to improve the DAG feature, so check out this issue around pipeline authoring. We did have lots of testing engagement and strong feedback around some issues for teams wanting to enforce ways to practice better test coverage, engagement in their projects. And then we are looking at implementing some job templates in the back half of the year in fiscal 22. So excited to talk a little bit more about that in our fiscal 22 vision coming up. And then we also have 91 upvotes in multiple cache in the same job that we delivered. I'll probably group those two issues together.
Oh yeah, I think I remember. Was that 13.7 or 13? It may have slipped from 13.7 and went out 13.8.
13.9.
13. Okay, so it did slip. I remember seeing that when I was going through one of my release post messaging leads, and I was like, "This looks cool."
I know. Yeah. Okay.
Highlights from community marketing customers. Do we want to? You keeping it purely kind of real practical, straightforward features here? Did you want to talk about the pricing, the tier deprecation and how that impacts any of Verify or any of this stuff, or like any of the movement from the features, if there is any, or anything like that, or any reports that came out, or looking forward kind of stuff? Or I'm cool with leaving it like as it is. I was just curious, throw these ideas out there.
Well, the pricing stuff will be forward looking.
Yeah.
So we would be reporting on that, probably next quarter, right?
Well, I mean, like predictions and trends kind of thing. I mean, and then did any of the features get impacted by the change? Were there any in starter that are no longer got moved, or was there any movement?
Yeah, but this is like fiscal year 21 highlights.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I guess technically was our pricing change not in? It must have just hit at the end of the year. Okay, it was the end of February.
But I suppose, yeah, like it happened in I think February 1st.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gotcha. Weeks are just running together. Cool.
No, you're good. You're good. I think what I can do is though we can say announced new pricing tiers.
Yeah. That's cool.
Free, premium, and ultimate. And we didn't have any changes in Verify.
Cool. Okay.
So, and looking ahead, let me do a time check for us. Okay, great.
We're okay.
So looking ahead, wanted to do like a level set on how product works, and wanted to frame up for the team that we use jobs to be done, which are frameworks for understanding tasks and how we build for certain personas. We then break down those tasks into various user stories, which are added to issues.
Yeah.
And these are all framed around specific personas. The ops section has been really focused on particular personas around Devin and Sasha and Verify. Sasha, which is the software developer, has been our number one persona for a really long time. As we look forward into fiscal year 22, we're going to start shifting into the team lead, Delaney. We're going to start prioritizing Devin, the DevOps engineer, and even start looking at Dakota, the application director,
Those
as
are the
some
ones I
of
focus on.
what?
Those are the ones I focus on and have written throughout the use case.
So those are going to be the ones that we start thinking about more.
Well, look at that. It all comes full circle.
Full circle.
That's awesome.
And then as we open into fiscal year 22, I wanted to share with everyone kind of the landscape for Verify in a SWOT matrix as well. So some of our biggest strengths, which are internal resources for us to exploit, are the fact that we are in Verify one of the core reasons why people come to GitLab. And with that, we need to leverage the fact that if they're coming into GitLab to UCI, we can then begin to expand them to use GitLab for other purposes with the single DevOps platform. And then finally, our developer first approach, we can begin to reach each developer where they're at and start to make their experience better and better at GitLab, and use that to our advantage and make their experience as best as possible with our product. In the weaknesses world, which is internal risks that we need to start thinking about and mitigating, is the fact that we have not as much usage metrics implemented today. So some of our Gmail, which are monthly active users metrics, haven't been instrumented yet. We need to start using some of that to guide where we're investing decisions. And other ways to start thinking about our product is around tech debt and bugs. We've had different priorities in the past couple of years in GitLab and Verify around like features. We've been trying to just churn out as many features as possible. So we've let bugs and tech debt kind of back up a little bit. So we need to think through what that means for our teams over time. Other weaknesses we need to think about mitigating are over-indexing to enterprise product management. So we have this strength of a developer first view, but we are getting an immense amount of awareness in selling to the enterprise, thinking about the enterprise, but we can't forsake the developer for the enterprise. So we need to make sure that we balance both of those two approaches.
Yeah, it's kind of like selling your soul.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, really, at the end of the day.
We just need to make sure that we think through the implications of both experiences and that we are balancing both of those personas and both of those, the community with
I was about to say, if you alienate or you let your community go by the wayside at the at the cost of more money in the enterprise, that'll come back to bite you. I mean, it has historically it has for every single person that's tried to do that.
Totally.
No community, no long-term success for sure.
Right. And then opportunities for us, which are the external resources that we should be exploiting, are the fact that all functions of the development have the potential to be in a single platform. And we are that tool. So we need to start exploiting that advantage, that narrative, and use it to our advantage in the market and have the customers realize that we are the fact that we have that potential and they can use us for all those functions. We can take that and reduce the friction between each stage and begin enabling users to adopt those workflows more easily by empowering developers and managers of operations, quality, and security teams by baking those activities more intuitively into GitLab. So if we can make it easier to model complex workflows, or we can make our systems more performant, or we can make it more natural to create your pipelines, we make it easier for people to adopt GitLab.
Yeah.
And then the last piece is threats. How do we mitigate these external risks of competition from tools like GitHub, Circle CI, JFrog, and HashiCorp. And HashiCorp's on this list because of their tools like Waypoint.
Yeah.
When we look at the developer first experience, the CLI tools that make it really easy to reach the developer and start eroding the market share of the developer experience. How do we make sure that we are compelling and easy to use for the developer, but also compelling and easy to use for the enterprise, which is really important when we also start seeing public cloud providers emerging with developer tool sets as well.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So in light of all of these pillars, we have three main themes that we're inheriting from the ops section themes.
Yeah, I remember those. I got a slide on with those on it.
Yes. The first one is speedy, reliable pipelines, and we'll be focusing on tech debt and bug investments in addition to the Mac OS and sticky runners in fiscal year 2022. We'll also be doubling down on operations for all and our new pipeline editing and building experience in fiscal year 22. And lastly, we'll be baking in our smart feedback loop by investing more in code coverage by enabling better decision-making in our teams.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, maybe I can find the slide that I had with that kind of stuff on it and port it over, and or vice versa, or merge those two together. Cool. I'm glad we're still using those. I like those themes.
Yeah, and all these links tie back to the ops direction page so that we're connecting people back to the cascade of our vision, right? Because that's the intent there. And then we have just this setup slide, which builds like developer teams, organizations, and like our purpose for fiscal year 22 is to solve complex relationships in code, drive team efficiency, make decisions with GitLab, so that ultimately we're helping people prove the ROI of a single DevOps platform. Like that's our mission for Verify.
Proof is in the DevOps Verify pudding.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Empower users. Yeah, I like it.
So I'll let you ruminate on that. The last 7 slides are really like product deep dive. That'll be me diving in, telling that story.
Sure.
I would love to hear your thoughts, rumination on that. I know I loaded you up front with a bunch of stuff and action for you to do. So I know that you're hitting a wall with all the stuff I just threw at you. So
this is awesome. I love this kind of thing. So I'm always down for building the car while it's moving, and I'm always down for a little, intensive kind of, run through it all kind of thing. I'm definitely a visual learner and sometimes a social learner like this. So it's helpful for me. And now I can take this recording. It's good. I can come back whenever that uploads, shoot me the link. Cause there'll be bits and pieces that I want to go back to. And then, I'll need to add some more notes, think through some of the narrative, and then see if there's any areas that I have any, actual changes or feedback or questions. But yeah, I think this is really good. It's not a surprise to me that, the team has really awesome content in this area. So I think I like that it's the product focus. I think the scope is right. And I think it's cool that we're working on this kind of scope things where it doesn't just lean all the way to solution and marketing land. I think that's really cool. And that'll be helpful for that bigger picture that we were talking about too with PM and PMM. So I like that a lot. Kevin added a meeting with me later today, a coffee chat, and Kenny added a coffee chat on Friday. So I don't know what happened yesterday, but all of a sudden product people added a coffee chat. So that's cool. But that's all good stuff. And, I'll be talking to Kenny that we're working on this too. I think he'll be excited. What's your timeline? What are you thinking and all that?
Well, I was going to ask you your take on it because I wanted to give you space after kind of showcasing the content and my expectations of how I wanted to help co-create this with you, and what my dreams of dreams for this, Parker, is that you feel empowered to learn and excited to position these categories. And here's what we could do. We could just have the AMA the recording of the current positioning
Yeah.
be the slide, the reference slide, where you kind of talk through the current features of like you just talking through like a narrative. That's a monologue. You don't have to talk through each of those slides and features. So you can position pipeline authoring in a narrative that you think makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we have that slide deck as an accompaniment to that narrative. If you feel like that would be a faster time to value and more of an easier field enablement. So that's one approach.
And we
Or
doing general, by the way? Did we? I don't know if we landed on. Are we doing all field, or is this customer success, enterprise reps, SDRs? Do we know?
we're gonna shoot it to customer success and sales. Like those are going to be the two
Cool.
channels that we post this recording to and open up the AMA for, because I'm wanting to like just be as vulnerable and as open about the verify first half strategy as possible.
Yeah.
I want as much feedback and as much openness as possible, because you saw the MR of like my proposal to move the category. So I want people
I gave you a little response there, I think, yesterday.
Yeah. So I want people to be as engaged and as possible in what we're looking to do in the first half. So I want this to be as open as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm assuming we want to avoid it turning into I heard you're going to change the maturity down and like it going that path. I'm assuming we want to kind of keep
Why does that matter?
Okay. I didn't know because I feel like that would just eat up the whole session if people went down that path. Okay. Yeah, but if it's an AMA, I like to control the narrative. You know what I mean? Otherwise, when the train gets off the rails, it's hard to get it back on with that kind of thing. But
we don't need to control the narrative. It's an AMA. Like if we post the recording and the only question we have is, I hear you're changing the maturity, then there's no questions about the recording or the deck.
Oh, okay. I was separating the presentation from the AMA. Okay, gotcha.
So like the presentation is content for the first half so that people are going to be engaged about what's happening in Verify and that they understand like where we're going, what we're doing. And then when they see the maturity change, they're still engaged and motivated, that they're not like,
Gotcha.
They're not seizing, like, oh my gosh, we're changing something. Yep. And uninspired. They don't feel attacked is my purpose.
No, that makes sense. I get where you're at now.
So we don't need to control the narrative because the narrative's already there.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking AMA. I was thinking presentation.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking, I for some reason in my head, I thought it was going to be presentation and then separate was going to be the AMA. We're doing these together. Gotcha.
So we will do the recording. We'll post the recording.
Yep.
And then AMA is open. People, just like we do at GitLab, and it'll be just like an open forum for people to ask as many questions, whatever they want. And
cool. If
they don't have any questions about the presentation or the deck, then that's their own.
Yeah. Well, in that case, there is no narrative. So disregard that. Cool. Yeah. The only thing I can think is for like SDRs and some of the reps, this will just be really overload as far as just like granular features. So I will think through your comment about different way of kind of positioning that, or at least having a clear delineation between like, hey, SAs and TAMs, y'all want this, y'all want to be really active listening for all this part, and then maybe like a too long didn't read or something that's a little bit more high level for some of the roles that to be, where like this kind of information isn't going to help them in their day-to-day, right? So I'll think through that too, because knowing your audience is important with these things. But if it's AMA, I think we're doing the right thing, and I'll digest, provide feedback, get some more speaker notes, that kind of thing, and we can take it from there. But after SCO ends tomorrow, Friday, I'm back to normal life, and then things should be back to normal life, which is good.
Okay, wonderful. Well,
so it should be a long turnaround. We should be able to kick back and rock this out pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And in general, I would hope that like the strategy review, the deep dive slides, the whole presentation, including the current review, is no more than like 35 minutes. So like the whole recording, all of it, less than 35 minutes. So
that's fair. The longer it is, the harder it is to keep everyone's attention for, that period of time.
And my hope would be like that they can, shorten the recording and distribute it to customers, right?
Oh, yeah.
that they can do with it what that they want. It's an asset that they can share.
This is the gift from Verify.
Yes. All right. Perfect.
This is good. Thank you for this. Very, very helpful. And it's just this is really helpful for me. It saves me. This is an efficient way for me to go through this stuff and really get kickstarted. So I don't know if it's how you normally do things. So I appreciate it for you thinking about that.
I want it to be efficient. So thank you for working with me. I appreciate it.
Got it. Air high five. We'll stay async and we'll rock back out and plan an actual